almost. Alright guys, and we are live again with AAU's League of Legends 1v1 tournament. Currently we have ICantThinkUpOfAn against Gildarts, as Tristana is the champion of choice today.
So again, if you guys didn't tune in for our first 1v1 matchup, we were doing mirror matches, and so a lot of times the champions that are picked are done randomly. So sometimes, you know, if someone is used to 80 carry, they might get an 80 carry role. Sometimes they get the 80 carry role, but they haven't played that 80 carry. So it really comes down to your knowledge of the game, your knowledge of your champions, and whether you can work, you know, on the fly with a build that you've never done yet.
That's right, and since a lot of these players may not have experience with these champions, you'll definitely be able to see once we start up. For example, we have one Tristana going with Flash and Ignite, the other one Barrier or Ignite. How do you think that's going to play out?
So ICantThinkUpOfAn is, with Barrier, is going to be, you could either go aggressive or defensive with the Barrier. You could bait the Barrier underneath your tower, or you can dive in after, you know, if Gildarts is forced away with his Flash and Tristana can follow up with a hop, she could use Barrier to get away, and so that Gildarts can't turn that around and pick it up once the tower starts focusing ICantThinkUpOfAn. On the other hand, Gildarts can be very slippery with the Flash. She also has a hop and then can flash away from the Barrier. So it just comes into the whole rock, paper, scissors, who gets the first shot off, you know, who is taking the aggressive role, do they overstep, are they out of place? That's all going to factor it. And when we look at these roles, before we were seeing a lot of Dorn items being the choice, and then we saw a few builds that were going with the Crystalline Flask and Pots, and so far, like, we've seen Crystalline having a lot more lane sustain, and we're seeing that mana regeneration playing a really large part in who wins. The more mana that you have available usually is dictating the battle, not so much necessarily how much health you have, but the mana. So do you think we're going to see that with Tristana, or are we going to see a lot more of this auto attacks?
I think even though Tristana is traditionally an AD carry, there was that phase where she was played as an AP character, and even still now, her early to very beginning of mid-game, her AP damage is extremely viable, actually, especially on that rocket jump and her E, which is that damage over time. And I think it's actually possible that we might be seeing a little more sustain, such as that Crystalline Flask, so the players get this mana regeneration, but it's also equally as likely, I'd say, that they go with something more along the lines of a Dorn's Blade, so they can get a little more attack damage, a little more health, and have a little more, not in-lane sustain, but passive sustain.
So we have, there are 3 win conditions. There's First Blood, 100 CS, or First Tower. We're dealing with someone who can farm. How soon do you think we might see that 100 CS?
I think if one of these players really chooses to play this defensively, then it is actually entirely possible that we could go for this 100 CS. I don't see it. I don't think this is going to be happening before 12 to 15 minutes at the most, in which case this would be by far the longest match we've had so far.
I'm gonna start expecting engages around 2, because I know Gildarts97 can be a little aggressive, and I think ICantThinkUpOfAn is a very skilled player. So I think around 2 we're gonna start seeing these players have some really great exchanges. Alright, so just underway we see that we are going to have that Crystalline Flask going on. ICantThinkUpOfAn and Gildarts going to start out with that Dorn's Blade. So Gildarts, you know, taking perhaps more of a offensive approach, and ICantThinkUpOfAn is prepared for that. You can see that, again, ICantThinkUpOfAn is going with the lane sustain build, and that's generally been, no matter what champion ICantThinkUpOfAn gets, usually he picks these items.
I think it's a good strategy. First of all, over just about any other build, you're getting a lot more mana, which plays a huge role in these 1v1 games, which tend not to last very long, and when you're using your skills early on, they really cost a lot of mana because you don't have any mana items yet. So I think that mana will actually be playing a really big role in this, considering that Gildarts only has that Dorn's Blade, and while his auto attacks will be hitting a lot harder, I'm not sure which one's going to be more effective.
Well, it looks like he's chose to go with rapid fire first, so you're going to see a little bit more harass with that Doran's blade. You know, he's got the flash in case he oversteps, and over here on ICantThinkUpOfAn, we have explosive shot. So ICantThinkUpOfAn, it's got the lane sustain, it's got, you know, the health pots, the mana regen, and she also has crystalline flask. So we're going to be able to see him kind of letting the lane get pushed toward his side so that he can farm up and try to reach that 100 CS. Now, I don't think that we're going to get to the first tower yet because Tristana, although is very good, remember in early game the towers do have an armor buff. That was in a few patches ago. And then we probably won't see a tower falling down until 8. And to be honest, the damage that scales on Tristana is very, very quick. So we're not going to reach, I'm going to guess we're not going to go past 8 minutes. So as you can see, both players are, you know, sitting around their caster minions. This is typical of AD carries and mids when they are farming. Not trying necessarily to harass a bunch. A little bit of a shot going out on the Gildarts, and you can see that it's chunking a little bit. You know, it did about almost 100 damage to him. So really, we're going to start seeing this farm game because until we have a full commitment from one of the players, there isn't going to be, you know, a big chunk of damage for an initiation. It's going to be a lot of poking, and with ICantThinkUpOfAn, I have a feeling he's already got the advantage with just those pots, and I can't stress that enough because in these exchanges, Gildarts has that Dorn shield, and even though there's a little bit of lifesteal, you only get 5 health per hit. Those pot crystalline flask is definitely going to outweigh that.
Yeah, and especially once these champions start getting a little bit higher level, around level 4 and level 5, and ICantThinkUpOfAn is getting that starting to level that up more, it's going to start taking for a lot more damage, and I think we're definitely going to see that start to have a much bigger impact soon.
And so when we look at the gold right now, you know, they're very, very even in terms of CS. You know, 9 and 13. All it takes is one person to get a good position, and that it can easily equalize that 3 minion difference right now. ICantThinkUpOfAn wants this setup right here, where he has, you know, the turret at his back, and the minions are about at his torch. Because what that allows is that he can freeze the lane there, and as long as he can freeze the lane there, the tower isn't going to eat up his minions, and he's not forced to miss any of that CS. So as you can see, he's trying to pick that up, but he's having a very difficult time grabbing those minions. And he did snag that last one, possibly grab that one as well. But again, 1570. So what is the item they should grab when they go back? Should it be boots or should it be damage?
I'm thinking it shouldn't actually be either. It should be more defensive, because I know in some of the previous games we've seen in this tournament that the defensive items have actually played a much bigger role than the offensive items have. For example, I believe it was in the Kha'Zix match when we saw one player start with a Doran shield, and the other player, I believe, started with
a longsword.
Yes, it was a longsword, and that Doran shield just helped so much compared to that longsword because it gave that player.
And a great jump on from Gildarts, and it looks like Gildarts is taking a little bit too much than he really wanted. The barrier coming from ICantThinkUpOfAn, and first blood goes to ICantThinkUpOfAn. Gildarts thought he had it, but again, the pots and the barrier bait,
it was just too much for him, because not having that barrier to counteract it, that was too big of a life lead for ICantThinkUpOfAn, and in combination with those pots, there's just nothing you can do at that point.
And I feel like if you have 700, you're almost at 800 gold. He could have gone back really soon and got a pickaxe before he did that initiation.
And it would have helped him a lot. Whichever player went back first, if they were able to get that initiate before the other player was able to back, that would be such a huge advantage. I think if he had just gone back first, that would have been a big advantage for him. But
you know, that was really, really close engage when that first happened. You know, everyone's like about half, and so Gildarts was thinking, you know, I'm gonna probably win this trade-off, and then as soon as the pot starts going, that's when, you know, the tables turned, and then you see that barrier come off. And I think Gildarts should have backed away halfway through that engage and tried to bait the barrier out. So once that barrier was baited out, it would have been safe for Gildarts to take that, but I think it was just his trigger finger was just a little too itchy. I think he jumped a little too early on that.
Yep, and because of it, we saw that first game number 1 going up to ICantThinkUpOfAn. We will be right back with the next match.